Lately, I've been noticing science based lifting as a popular trend. Um, I remember us being okay with discussing research papers in conjunction with traditional wisdom, but it seems that these days um, we are in this quest of trying to find out what's the absolute best and not take into consideration um, the complicated nature of uh, the motivations, the limitations, and everything else. So, the first point that comes to mind is that science based lifting is purely result oriented, purely logical, very rigid. It's rooted in outcomes, all about maximizing hypertrophy, hitting your maximum recoverable volume, optimizing volume, frequency, rest periods, progressive overload down to a decimal point. And you know what? That's great. It works. But when training becomes only about results, it starts to lose something deeper, a spiritual aspect, something human. You end up treating your body like a machine, like an apparatus in a lab, and your workouts like spreadsheets. There's no room for how you feel, why you train, and who you become in the process. And then we have the myth of the best program. Here's the problem: a huge part of science based lifting community promotes the idea of a best program, the most optimal, the most evidence backed, the most efficient. But that mindset assumes everyone has same life, same time, same body, and same priorities. It's like we shudder at the usage of the word optimal these days because it's almost a taboo now. But then, even in traditional circles, uh, let's call it spirit based lifting for lack of a better word, um, there's room for more science than there is room for um, holistic discussion in this science based approach. See, life doesn't operate like a lab study. If you've got a job, family, maybe just an hour a day, 4 times a week, guess what? That's your optimal. That's your filter. Life sets these constraints for us, and the best program is the one that can be fit into this structure. It's like there is this first layer of first few layers of filters that will be naturally set uh, by your life and everything in it. And so it's deeply contextual. And then there's the discussion of the spirit of lifting, which is the missing element. The science based lifting often forgets the spirit that is extremely important, um, that is that's naturally gets expressed through working out, the fire, the passion that can't really be quantified in a lab study. the meditative zone you enter when you're grinding out a heavy set of deadlifts or squats, this psychological battle with the bar, that raw emotion, that release, is therapy for some of us. If you look at Tom Platz's video regarding squats, he almost loses himself in trying to describe the feeling of squats, the sound of iron plates clanging into one another. Right? These things can't really be described using numbers and figures. So training isn't always about optimization. Of course, if you're looking for the most efficient way to train a certain muscle group, it's more than likely that you don't really like training it, which is fine. We need not prioritize every exercise and every hypertrophy goals with regards to different muscles in the same fashion, but then optimized training must only be the answer if a client or if someone is actually looking for it. What if I enjoy working out 6 days a week? What if I'm deliberately not pushing myself hard just so that I can get that endorphin kick every single day rather than, let's say, 3 or 4 days a week? Sometimes it's about expression, about finding stillness in strain, peace in repetition. That's something science doesn't really capture, but every lifter who's fallen in love with the iron knows exactly what I'm talking about. Lifting is as much an art as it is science. There's creativity in how you approach your sessions. There's intuition, there's feel, there's a bit of randomness. Science gives you the frame. In fact, we've always discussed this frame throughout. Even the most out of touch bro scientist at least hint at the presence of science, even though that's completely even though they are more than likely wrong. So science gives you the frame, but what you build inside that frame, that's deeply personal. And there's more wiggle room than you might think. In fact, traditional strength advice like SBD, squat, bench, deadlift, is often more holistic. It's brutally effective, yes. It also encourages mindset, identity, grit, controlled aggression. None of that fits into a randomized controlled trial, but it's very real. Now, this isn't me promoting only SBD over everything else. Again, that is a completely different discussion. That is, again, the opposite extreme, right? I've made a video on this topic, how minimalism will fail you. Of course, there's many other videos out there. So my advice isn't just promoting SBD or this compound only approach. But then, like, personally, I've learned more from SBD. Like, it has taught me about so many different things. Of course, I mean, besides the mindset and identity, I mean, even in the domain of executing exercises, which is which is kind of logical, which is science based, like using your um, opposing muscle groups, like engaging your lats in the press movement. Uh, Now, since we are using heavier loads, it mandates the usage of your core. Like you can really tell the difference whether or not you are engaging your core in the bench press, as opposed to, let's just say, um, focusing on the cables and never really uh, realizing the difference between the two. So that was just anecdotal, but yeah, you never know what you're missing out on unless you've tried it. And then integration of the two must be a main focus, and so they aren't mutually exclusive concepts. Like um, uh, if you ask someone whether he's a science-based lifter or a spirit-based lifter, that isn't the right question. It's almost like, are you a science-based lifter at the expense of the spirit aspect, um, or the opposite? Although the opposite has a term, it's called ego lifting. Now, don't get me wrong, science and spirit aren't enemies. In fact, we should work together, but when we over prioritize data and dismiss this psychological, emotional, even spiritual side of training, we lose something vital. We aren't just building muscles in the gym, we are building character, identity, discipline. We are breaking down older versions of ourselves and rebranding ourselves into new. We don't really talk enough about who we become while trying to get strong, and that might be the most valuable thing lifting gives us. Not just the muscle, that's the mindset. So here's the takeaway: don't throw out science, but don't throw out the soul either. Let the science guide you, but let the spirit drive you. Track your volume, but also feel your sessions. Chase PRs, but remember what lifting teaches you about life. If you found this video helpful, drop a like, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more grounded, real talk about training. I'm also a personal trainer. If you want to work with me one on one, my email is in the description. Make sure the spelling is correct. Until next time,